This is a Chinese movie and the story behind it is kinda sad and tragic, because it's written and directed by a young man named Bo Hu. And shortly after completing this 4-hour epic, he took his own life. And after hearing that story, it's pretty much impossible not to read into some of the themes here. Because one of the first things I noticed when watching it was that when we're first introduced to all these seemingly unrelated characters, there's a lot of tension, aggression and hostility in the interactions between the people. And that's a theme that runs throughout the entire movie too. There's some bullying, there's violence, there's death, there's suicide, and none of these characters appear to be very happy or content. And let's be honest, if you make a 4-hour movie about those things, I'd say it's a pretty safe bet that it comes from a deep place. This is not the kind of movie you make just for a quick buck or for pure entertainment. But what about the story and the technical aspects of the filmmaking? Well, as I said in the very beginning, we're introduced to a slew of seemingly unrelated characters. And for the first 30 minutes or so, it did feel a little bit disjointed. Because this is also not a movie that explains pretty much anything. So you'll just have to be patient and wait for things to start to slowly make sense. And it does, the puzzle pieces do start to fall into place after a while. And turns out all the characters are actually connected, and their stories are intertwined. So looking at the writing on its own, it's a very well written movie. The narrative at the end of the day is kinda simple actually, but the way it's structured and put together is very intricate. And while there is one storyline I'd call the main story, about a kid who gets bullied, all the other characters and their stories feel almost as important. And the way they all connect and come together is pretty brilliant. And it's also a very well shot movie too, with a lot of long continuous shots. In fact, it's pretty much a series of long continuous shots. There aren't really any quick cuts or a lot of editing at all, at least within scenes, which does give it this slow, steady, brooding pace. Unfortunately, that's also the reason it's almost 4 hours long. Because if you just wanted to purely focus on the storytelling, and you just wanted to move the story along, ignoring the aesthetics, the style, you could cut the runtime in half, easily, and not lose any of the actual story, because a huge portion of the movie is just brooding silence. There are these long pauses between interactions that just drag out basically every scene. Now I get it, it's a stylistic choice, and it does give the movie a certain feel. And had you cut out a lot of that silence, it would be a very different experience. It would essentially be a completely different movie, although the story would be exactly the same. And that's obviously not what the filmmaker was going for here. But at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, this one was a bit of a slog to get through. 4 hours is a long time, and very few movies can get away with a runtime like that. The only one I can even think of right now is Lawrence of Arabia, which is pretty great. That being said, I did like the story here quite a bit. I don't think any of that should have been cut out. There weren't really a lot of scenes or sequences that felt like they didn't serve a purpose. But as I said, the main reason this is as long as it is are those long brooding pauses. And it's also the reason I didn't enjoy it more. And pretty much the only reason. Because as I said, I thought the writing in this was excellent. It's a very strong foundation to build on, and everything else was well handled too. But yeah, I didn't end up loving this, and it did take quite a bit of patience to get through. But would I recommend it? Well, to most people, probably not. But if you have the patience and appreciate a well-crafted film, sure. Otherwise, it's pretty safe to skip. Or don't, I'm not your dad. But I am trying to sell out, so consider liking, subbing, hitting that bell and supporting me on Patreon. Because I really need to get myself one of those mythical elephants. And hey, why not drop a comment below or check out another review? I'd appreciate it. Thanks.